I'll say right off the bat, I'm glad I saw this. You might even say I was lucky enough to check it out. Lucky Grandma stars Tsai Chin as Grandma, a chain-smoking, combative new widow who steals money from a local crime gang when one of its members dies sitting next to her on a bus. She soon finds herself being pursued by two members of the criminal organization and hires a bodyguard from a rival gang to protect her. I love a great dark comedy. Next to horror, it's probably one of my favorite genres, so this piqued my interest almost as soon as I read the synopsis. It reminded me more of a comedic version of The Mule from 2018 with Clint Eastwood. Both share similar traits of an older protagonist who gets involved with crime later in life. It's fun seeing these unusual types of pairings, and here, played for laughs. And it worked. I enjoyed this film. I found it to be quite funny, especially in its first half. And that's especially thanks to the comedic timings of Tsai Chin. I thought she carried a lot of this movie, and she does so especially through her facial expressions more than anything. Her sullen looks are used as a contrast to some of the most lighthearted scenarios. Like at the beginning of the movie, it's her birthday, and her family is singing happy birthday to her, and she's trying to be patient with them because she loves them, but the look on her face shows she wants them to just be done with the song. Or there's another scene where she's at the bank and she hits a customer milestone, so the employees start singing to her. And the look on her face shows she wants them to just be done with it already. So moments like these made for great laughs. She's very reminiscent of that old-fashioned relative that just about all of us have. She's someone who enjoys staying in her own bubble, and she can be superstitious, even going to a fortune teller. You hear her in the beginning talking about some TV doctor and believing every word they say. And we all know someone who has some of those traits, or we know someone who's related to someone with those traits. So it made for an engaging protagonist. She felt very real. I also particularly enjoyed her interactions with her bodyguard, a guy named Big Pong. He's a large, imposing figure, but he doesn't seem like the brightest guy. But they don't play him up as just this dumb henchman. He's very young, but she finds out that he believes in a lot of the same traditional values that she does. So seeing these two people with a massive generational gap talking about old school values was quite funny. Especially when a few minutes later, right after a conversation, he's seen beating the crap out of someone who's bothering her. This was the feature debut of director Sasie Sealy, who also co-wrote this, and I appreciated a lot of the aesthetics she put into this. A lot of the lighting and cinematography was fantastic, especially the interplay between light and dark. It made for some really wonderful shots. But there was also a nice use of sound between effects and off-camera dialogue, which made for some fun gags. In one scene, Big Pong shoves a guy who you think he's gonna beat up, and then the camera pans away, but you still hear them, and all he's doing is just lecturing them about respecting their elders. Or there's another scene where Grandma's constantly winning at the casino, and it's shown through the repetition of the same few sounds, and it made for this little catchy tune that got a good laugh out of me. So from a technical standpoint, there was a lot to admire. Though there seemed to be some missteps in the story, mainly in the second half. The first half is slightly repetitive. It's mostly just a series of scenes of Grandma being followed by these two gang members, and then Big Pong stops them, and then they run away, and then it repeats. But these would at least be funny, mainly due to the over-the-top gang members and the way they would play off Grandma and Big Pong. However, the second half takes a more serious tone and things shift unevenly. The way each scene built off one another in the first half, things felt more chaotic. And it seemed like things were going to get bigger, messier, and more over the top as the movie went along. But instead it hits a certain point and starts to go for a subtler, more restrained approach. It only gets to that explosive feel once or twice in the second half. And it would only be for a few minutes. After this one huge moment halfway through the movie, the energy becomes considerably lower. The movie also doesn't do much with Grandma and Big Pong's relationship after a certain point, despite half the movie building it up. Instead, it gets put to the side and then one or two new characters are introduced. One especially who's hyped up as they're going to play an integral part in the movie. But what happens is these new characters are only sporadically seen. You'll see them for one scene and then they'll disappear until much later on. It felt very one step forward, two steps back. It felt like logically this movie was building towards something bigger. And then all of a sudden they were like, yeah, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to go in a few other directions instead. And it just doesn't work as well. It splits its focus and only dedicates a small amount of time to the things we saw in the first half. So now the emotional stakes don't feel as heavy anymore. It's all over the place. Though they're not gone altogether, don't get me wrong. Like, there still are moments in the second half that I legitimately enjoyed. Plus, Tsai Chin's performance remains consistently great and carries this all the way to the end. But without spoiling anything, there were some scenes in the end that I felt could have been moved up towards the middle, and the second half could have just built more off that instead. The drastic tonal shift that we did get felt uneventful and, as a result, disappointing at times. This ended up being not 100% what I thought it was going to be. While technically the story flowed together coherently, the tone of the first half doesn't mesh as well with the tone of the second half. So it felt uneven. However, I still actually really enjoyed this movie despite its flaws. Tsai Chin gives a great lead performance, it's often funny, and it's competently directed. The unique premise is often engaging, and the end result is good. My thing is, it just had the potential to be great. Lucky Grandma gets a 7.5 out of 10. It's out on VOD now to rent, so give it a shot if you can. Despite my issues with it, there's still enough here that makes it well worth your time. So let me know, did you see Lucky Grandma, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you find it funny? Did the story work for you? And what's one of your favorite dark comedies? Let me know in the comments below, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you next time.